Welcome back to Leveraging Leadership, where we unpack the art of business leadership. I'm your host, Emily Sander, Chief of Staff turned Executive Leadership Coach. This show is all about finding your points of greatest influence and leveraging them to better serve those around you. Have you ever walked into a meeting convinced it was going to be a disaster and then have it go completely differently? Let's talk about testing our assumptions. We all have assumptions. We all make assumptions. We all make predictions and we have projections about future events. And we all tell stories in our head about what's about to happen. Very natural thing, like literally like it's human nature. It's built into our brain. And there's lots of good things about us trying to predict what's going to happen. It saves us a lot of time. It saves us a lot of danger, et cetera, et cetera. But there is also a place for noting our assumptions about an upcoming meeting or about an upcoming interaction, and then comparing that with reality and what really happens after the fact. And sometimes you get two wildly different stories. A couple examples here. Let's say that you're about to go into this meeting and your boss is going to announce that you are taking on a new role. The scope of your role is changing, and you're now going to be consolidating 3 office locations into one regional area. And you're like, oh, expletive. Like, this person's going to hate that. These people are going to blow up. They're going to be like, who the heck is this person? I don't know this person. If anyone's going to take over that region, it should be me. So note the story you're telling yourself about what's going to happen in this meeting. And then you go in the meeting and you're like, okay, like here we go. Boss is going to make the announcement, makes the announcement. What actually happens in reality? What probably happens in reality is one person is like, okay, meh, and they're continuing to like slack people like as they're in the meeting and they're like totally distracted. They don't even care. They're like, I hear that. I don't really care. Doesn't affect me. Okay. One person is like, I don't know, mildly confused. And they're like, wait, what? We're consolidating the region? Okay. Why are we doing that? Okay. For that reason. Okay, and she's gonna be in charge of that. Okay, got it. Okay, sure. Maybe one person is like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, like, wait a minute, like, this is brand new information. I'm in charge of that 3rd office you're talking about. How is this gonna work?" And they have follow-up questions. And then what exactly is your role gonna be? Like, how are we gonna do that? And it's explained, like, your boss and you explain, like, "Hey, this is a brand new concept. Here's our thoughts on it. The very next thing that's gonna happen is I'm gonna be meeting with the heads of those offices to talk about some of this stuff one-on-one, and then we're gonna talk about it together, all the heads of the offices, and then I'm gonna go on site and talk with you and your management team on this initiative." And it's like, okay, they might not like it because it's uncertainty, right? And there's like unknown, and it's like, new kind of power dynamic and power structure. Also need the context of like why we're doing this and how I fit into that. But it sounds like there's going to be subsequent meetings, and I'm going to be able to not only get information in those meetings, but also give my input and have dialogue about how this is going to roll out. And I have control over how this is going to be rolled out to my team. Okay, so like maybe not rousing endorsement right off the bat, but I have questions and looking forward to talking to you in the subsequent meetings and kind of with that tone, but it's not a big blow up. The point is, it's important to know what actually happened in reality because it's much different than the story in your head going in. Let's do a second example really quick. Let's say that I just had a person I was talking to say, Emily, I'm going into this meeting. I'm going to ask for this budget approval, and I know it's going to get shot down. And I know people are going to hate me for asking. And they're going to be like, how in the world could you be asking this? We've been talking to people about budget cuts. We've been asking people how to save money and be more cost efficient. And you're coming to me with this. And they're like, the CFO is going to hate me. My direct boss is in there. My boss's boss is in this meeting. And I'm going to go in here and do this. And it's going to make me look bad. And they're going to think that I'm irresponsible and I'm being greedy for my team. That is the story going in. That is the assumption line. That's the assumption. That's the storyline. In reality, what happened in this meeting is the CFO, who was a little frustrated with other team members about requests being made because they were frivolous requests. And it was like, look, we're in this financial position. This has been shared with the leadership team. We're in this financial position, yet you're asking for these basically nice to have things. Where this person was asking for like a very, it was a new idea and it was a new initiative, but it was to try to be creative and solve a problem they were having. And so the CFO had some questions about it, but was like, thank you for bringing this to me. This is the best idea I've seen around this. And so the person I was speaking to got this like feedback and compliment. There were follow-up meetings about, hey, we want to consider this. What if we did it like this? Are there contingency plans for X, Y, and Z? And so there were follow-up questions and follow-up meetings, but it was like, thank you for finally someone trying to be creative about this, thinking outside the box and being thoughtful about their ask. It wasn't like we would like an exorbitant amount of money for this thing that we're going to try and is unproven. It was, here's my idea. Here's what I vetted with the teams. Here's why I think it will work. Here's how I think it will work. And here's the initial investment that I'm asking for. If there's a proof of concept with this, then I'm going to come back and ask for another installment of a cash infusion in this area. So it was thought out and it was very different than the previous asks the CFO was getting. And the entire leadership team saw this person's thought process and it actually made them think better of this person. So that was the actual story. Okay, so in all of this, in all of these examples, the important part is to actually compare your prediction going in and then what actually happens afterward and see how different those are or how similar they are, but most likely they're going to be pretty different. So think through and then just take a few seconds to say, okay, here's like, I know this is going to happen in this meeting. And think through that, say it out loud or write it down. And then afterward, just take a few seconds to like mentally reflect and clock, okay, what actually happened there? And you can think through that, you can say it out loud, or you can write it down. Writing it down is cool because you can literally look at it like right next to each other in black and white. And sometimes it's laughable. Sometimes it's like, OMG. Okay, so I am not a good storyteller. I'm not a good predictor of the future in this one area. So I need to remember that. And if you do this exercise over and over and over again, over a week, a month, a quarter, I bet you if you do this, you are going to build up a huge body of evidence saying these negative things never happen or happen so minimally that it's barely a data point on a graph. Or it happens so differently than I predicted. These predictions aren't helpful. They're not accurate and they're not helpful for me to go through. And in that process, if you really spend time highlighting the fact that this went better than I thought, or this went differently, or here's how this positive outcome transpired, if you register that in your brain over and over and over again, your mental model will start to change over time. So you will just skip the part where you get anxious about this upcoming meeting. Maybe it is less severe at first, and then maybe it's just like, okay, I'm anxious, and then positive things happen. Or I'm anxious, and even if someone gets angry, I can handle myself. So try this for yourself. I would highly encourage you. I have been in this situation over and over where I am stressing the freak out about something and I literally lose sleep over it and I talk to people about it and I spin myself up about it and then it's a big fat nothing burger. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I just spent hours or possibly days of my life in a heightened state of like adrenaline. Who's gonna fight? Who's gonna flight? All this stuff, and it was for nothing. So that's nice. And oftentimes it was just different than what I thought. Oh, like, okay, I thought the agenda was going to be this. And actually, this thing came up, which made my original point and the original contentious point moot. And so now we're just moving on. Okay, I guess we're going this way. Cool. Or I love when I think that I can't handle myself. And then I do because the attack, so to speak, the predicted attack comes about in a different way where it's not an attack like the item and topic still comes up that I predicted, but in a much different way. And it's like, oh, when it comes up this way, I can easily answer that. I have the answer to that question and that concern. Here it is. And oh, now we're fine. Okay, now let's move on. So I would just clock all these things and literally build up some evidence and really register that new evidence because your brain is a fantastic and very powerful tool. It's a very powerful instrument. But if you train it, so to speak, on, hey, here's what actually happens in these. It'll go, oh, okay, here's what actually happens in these. Let me find more evidence to reinforce that. And so eventually you will just skip over and be like, positive things are going to come from this outcome, or I can take this challenging situation. And even if the team has conflict, it can be positive conflict. And at the end, we'll be closer for it. Okay, so go try this out in the next day, week, month, or if you run it for a quarter, that would be amazing. And see what happens, and see what happens for yourself. And if you have any questions or comments, or want to let me know how it goes, I would love that. You can shoot me an email at emily@nextlevel.coach. Otherwise, I will catch you next week on Leveraging Leadership.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.